When was the Ice Age?
Ice ages, or glacial periods, have occurred at irregular intervals for over 2.3 billion years. During an ice age, sheets of ice cover large portions of the continents. The exact reasons for the changes in Earth's climate are not known. Although some think they are caused by changes in Earth's orbit around the Sun. The Great Ice Age occurred during the Pleistocene epoch, which began about 2 million years ago and lasted until 11,000 years ago. At its height, about 27% of the world's present land area was covered by ice. In North America, the ice covered Canada and moved southward to New Jersey, in the Midwest. It reached as far south as St. Louis. Small glaciers and ice caps also covered the western mountains. Greenland was covered in ice as it is today. In Europe, ice moved down from Scandinavia into Germany and Poland. The British Isles and the Alps also had ice caps. Glaciers also covered the northern plains of Russia, the plateaus of Central Asia, Siberia, and the Kamchatka Peninsula. The glacier's effect on the United States can still be seen. The drainage of the Ohio River and the position of the Great Lakes were influenced by the glaciers. The rich soil of the Midwest is mostly glacial in origin. Rainfall in areas south of the glaciers formed large lakes in Utah, Nevada, and California. The Great Salt Lake in Utah is a remnant of one of these lakes. The large ice sheets locked up a lot of water. Sea level fell about 450 feet, 137 meters, below what it is today. As a result, some states, such as Florida, were much larger during the Ice Age. The glaciers of the last Ice Age retreated about 11,000 years ago. Some believe that the Ice Age is not over yet. The glaciers follow a cycle of advance and retreat many times. There are still areas of the Earth covered by ice, and this may be a time in between glacial advances.
What is a controlled substance?
The Comprehensive Drug Abuse Prevention and Control Act of 1971 was designed to control the distribution and use of all depressant and stimulant drugs and other drugs of abuse or potential abuse. Centrally acting drugs are divided into 5 classes called Schedule I through V.
How much does the heart weigh?
In an infant, the heart is about 1/30 of total body weight. In an average adult, the heart is about 1/300 of total body weight. This equals about 11 ounces, 310 grams, in males and 8 ounces, 225 grams, in females.
How much water does an average sponge circulate during a day?
A sponge that is 4 inches, 10 centimeters, tall and 0.4 inch, 1 centimeter in diameter pumps about 23 quarts, 22.5 liter, of water through its body in one day. To obtain enough food to grow by 3 ounces, 100 gram. A sponge must filter about 275 gallons, 1000 kilograms, of seawater.
What percentage of Earth's surface is tropical rainforest?
Rainforests account for approximately 7% of Earth's surface, or about 3 million square miles, 7.7 million square kilometers.
What is the difference between passive solar energy systems and active solar energy systems?
Passive solar energy systems use the architectural design, the natural materials, or absorptive structures of the building as an energy-saving system. The building itself serves as a solar collector and storage device. An example would be thick-walled stone and adobe dwellings that slowly collect heat during the day and gradually release it at night. Passive systems require little or no investment of external equipment. Active solar energy systems require a separate collector, a storage device, and controls linked to pumps or fans that draw heat from storage when it is available. Active solar systems generally pump a heat-absorbing fluid medium, air, water, or an antifreeze solution, through a collector. Collectors, such as insulated water tanks, vary in size, depending on the number of sunless days in a locale. Another heat storage system uses eutectic, phase-changing chemicals to store a large amount of energy in a small volume.
Does the United States currently produce enough energy to meet its consumption needs?
No. From 1958 forward, the United States has consumed more energy than it has produced. And the difference has been met by energy imports. In 2008, 73.71 quadrillion BTUs was the total United States energy production. In that same year 99.30 quadrillion BTUs were consumed.
Who proposed the phlogiston theory?
Phlogiston was a name used in the 18th century to identify a supposed substance given off during the process of combustion. The phlogiston theory was developed in the early 1700s by the German chemist and physicist Georg Ernst Stahl, 1660 to 1734. In essence, Stahl held that combustible materials such as coal or wood was rich in a material substance called phlogiston. What remained after combustion was without phlogiston and could no longer burn. The rusting of metals also involved a transfer of phlogiston. This accepted theory explained a great deal previously unknown to chemists. For instance, metal smelting was consistent with the phlogiston theory, as was the fact that charcoal lost weight when burned. Thus the loss of phlogiston either decreased or increased weight. The French chemist Antoine Laurent Lavoisier demonstrated that the gain of weight when a metal turned to a calx was just equal to the loss of weight of the air in the vessel. Lavoisier also showed that part of the air, oxygen, was indispensable to combustion, and that no material would burn in the absence of oxygen. The transition from Stahl's phlogiston theory to Lavoisier's oxygen theory marks the birth of modern chemistry at the end of the 18th century.
When was the comet Hale-Bopp first observed?
Comet Hale-Bopp was first observed by Alan Hale in New Mexico and Thomas Bopp in Arizona on July 22. 1995. Their discovery was announced by the International Astronomical Union on July 23, 1995. Hale-Bopp was closest to Earth in March 1997 when it was 122 million miles, 196 million kilometers, away. It is a very large comet with a nucleus of approximately 25 miles. 40 kilometers, in diameter, making it 4 times as large as Halley's Comet. Although most comets have 2 tails, Hale-Bopp exhibited 3 tails. The 2 tails typical of most comets are the dust tail and the ion tail. The dust tail, consisting of dust and debris from the nucleus, streams behind the comet in its orbit. The ion tail, consisting of the comet's material interacting with the solar wind, faces away from the Sun. Hale-Bopp's third tail was composed of neutral sodium atoms. Hale-Bopp was visible with the naked eye for nearly 19 months. It is not expected to return for 4,000 years.
What is the value of pi out to 30 digits past the decimal point?
Pi, Ti, represents the ratio of the circumference of a circle to its diameter. Used in calculating the area of a circle, tier 2, and the volume of a cylinder, tier 2h, or cone. It is a transcendental number, an irrational number with an exact value that can be measured to any degree of accuracy. But that can't be expressed as the ratio of 2 integers. In theory, the decimal extends into infinity, though it is generally rounded to 3.1416. The Welsh-born mathematician William Jones, 1675 to 1749, selected the Greek symbol, Ti, for pi. Rounded to 30 digits past the decimal point. It equals 3.1415926535897932384626433838279. In 1989, Gregory, 1952, and David Chudnovsky, 1947, at Columbia University in New York City calculated the value of pi to 1,011,961,691 decimal places. They performed the calculation twice on an IBM 3090 mainframe and on a Cray 2 supercomputer with matching results. In 1991, they calculated pi to 2,260,321,336 decimal places. In 1999, Yasumasa Kaneda, 1948. And Daisuke Takahashi of the University of Tokyo calculated pi out to 206,158,430,000 digits. Professor Kaneda at the University of Tokyo continues to calculate the value of pi to greater and greater digits. His laboratory's newest record, achieved in 2002 and subsequently verified, calculated pi to 1.2411 x 1012 digits, more than 1 trillion. The calculation required more than 600 hours of computing time using a Hitachi SR8000 computer with access to a memory of about 1 terabyte. Mathematicians have also calculated pi in binary format, i.e., zeros and ones. The 5 trillionth binary digit of pi was computed by Colin Percival and 25 others at Simon Fraser University. The computation took over 13,500 hours of computer time.
How is speleothem defined?
Speleothem is a term given to those cave features that form after a cave itself has formed. They are secondary mineral deposits that are created by the solidification of fluids or from chemical solutions. These mineral deposits usually contain calcium carbonate, Caco3, or limestone, but gypsum or silica may also be found. Stalactites, stalagmites, soda straws, cave coral, boxwork, and cave pearls are all types of speleothems.
How fast does rain fall?
The speed of rainfall varies with drop size and wind speed. A typical raindrop in still air falls about 600 feet. 182 meters per minute or about 7 miles, 11 kilometers per hour. Large raindrops can reach speeds of 16 to 20 miles, 26 to 32 kilometers per hour. Very small raindrops may fall slowly at no more than 1 mile, 1.6 kilometer per hour.
How rapidly is deforestation occurring?
Agriculture, excessive logging, and fires are major causes of deforestation. Afforestation and the natural expansion of forests help to decrease the rate of deforestation. The rate of deforestation has decreased from 16 million hectares, 61,776 square miles. Per year during the 1990s to 13 million hectares, 50,193 square miles. Per year in the decade 2000 to 2010, according to preliminary data for the decade. The net change in forest area for 2000 to 2010 is estimated at minus 5.2 million hectares. 20,007 square miles, per year, an area about the size of Costa Rica. Down from minus 8.3 million hectares, 32,046 square miles, per year in the 1990s.
What are the 7 warning signs of Alzheimer's disease?
The 7 warning signs of Alzheimer's disease are: asking the same question over and over again, repeating the same story. Word for word, again and again, forgetting how to cook, how to make repairs, how to play cards, or any other activities that were previously done with ease and regularity. Losing one's ability to pay bills or balance one's checkbook, getting lost in familiar surroundings, or misplacing household objects, neglecting to bathe, or wearing the same clothes over and over again, while insisting that one has taken a bath or that clothes are still clean, relying on someone else, such as a spouse. To make decisions, it is important to understand that even if someone has several or even most of these symptoms, it does not mean they definitely have Alzheimer's disease. It does mean they should be thoroughly examined by a medical specialist trained in evaluating memory disorders, such as a neurologist or a psychiatrist, or by a comprehensive memory disorder clinic with an entire team of experts knowledgeable about memory problems.
Who invented the World Wide Web?
Tim Berners-Lee, 1955, is considered the creator of the World Wide Web, WWW. The WWW is a massive collection of interlinked hypertext documents that travel over the Internet and are viewed through a browser. The Internet is a global network of computers developed in the 1960s and 1970s by the U.S. Department of Defense's Advanced Research Project Agency, hence the term ARPANET. The idea of the Internet was to provide redundancy of communications in case of a catastrophic event, like a nuclear blast, which might destroy a single connection or computer but not the entire network. The browser is used to translate the hypertext, usually written in hypertext markup language, HTML, so it is human readable on a computer screen. Along with Gutenberg's invention of the printing press, the inception of the WWW in 1990 and 1991, when Berners-Lee released the tools and protocols onto the Internet, is considered one of humanity's greatest communications achievements.
When was jet stream discovered?
A jet stream is a flat and narrow tube of air that moves more rapidly than the surrounding air. Discovered by World War II bomber pilots flying over Japan and the Mediterranean Sea. Jet streams have become important with the advent of airplanes capable of cruising at over 30,000 feet, 9,144 meters. The currents of air flow from west to east and are usually a few miles deep. Up to 100 miles, 160 kilometers, wide, and well over 1,000 miles, 1,600 kilometers, in length. The air current must flow at over 57.5 miles, 92 kilometers, per hour. There are two polar jet streams, one in each hemisphere. They move between 30 and 70 degrees latitude, occur at altitudes of 25,000 to 35,000 feet. 7,620 to 10,668 meters, and achieve maximum speeds of over 230 miles, 368 kilometers, per hour. The subtropical jet streams, again one per hemisphere, wander between 20 and 50 degrees latitude. They are found at altitudes of 30,000 to 45,000 feet. 9,144 to 13,715 meters, and have speeds of over 345 miles, 552 kilometers, per hour.
Which is the most common type of arthritis?
Arthritis, from the Greek arthro, meaning joint, and itis, meaning inflammation, is a group of diseases that affect synovial joints. Arthritis may originate from an infection, an injury, metabolic problems, or autoimmune disorders. The most common type of arthritis is osteoarthritis. Osteoarthritis is a chronic, degenerative disease most often beginning as part of the aging process. Often referred to as wear and tear arthritis because it is the result of life's everyday activities. It is a degradation of the articular cartilage that protects the bones as they move at a joint site. Osteoarthritis usually affects the larger, weight-bearing joints first, such as the hips, knees, and lumbar region of the vertebral column.
When was the term dinosaur first used?
The term dinosaur was first used by Richard Owen, 1804 to 1892, in 1841 in his report on British fossil reptiles. The term, meaning fearful lizard, was used to describe the group of large, extinct reptiles whose fossil remains had been found by many collectors.
What are the essential nutrient elements required for plant growth?
Essential nutrients are chemical elements that are necessary for plant growth. An element is essential for plant growth when, 1. It is required for a plant to complete its life cycle. To produce viable seeds, 2. It is part of a molecule or component of the plant that is itself essential to the plant, such as the magnesium in the chlorophyll molecule. And the plant displays symptoms of deficiency in the absence of the element. Essential nutrients are also referred to as essential minerals and essential inorganic nutrients.
How is the speed of a CPU measured?
Separate from the real-time clock which keeps track of the time of day. The CPU clock sets the tempo for the processor and measures the transmission speed of electronic devices. The clock is used to synchronize data pulses between sender and receiver. A 1 MHz clock manipulates a set number of bits 1 million times per second. In general, the higher the clock speed, the quicker data is processed. However, newer versions of software often require quicker computers just to maintain their overall processing speed. The Hertz is named in honor of Heinrich Hertz, 1857 to 1894, who detected electromagnetic waves in 1883. 1. Hertz is equal to the number of electromagnetic waves or cycles in a signal that is 1 cycle per second.
What are the blood group combinations that can normally be used to prove that a man is not the father of a particular child?
No child can acquire a gene, and consequently a blood grouping, if it is not possessed by either parent.
What is the economic importance of roots?
Carrots, beets, turnips, radishes, horseradish, sugar beets, and sweet potatoes are all taproots that have been used as food for human consumption for centuries. The spices licorice, sassafras, and sarsaparilla. The flavoring used to make root beer, are derived from roots. The drugs aconite, gentian, ipecac, ginseng, reserpine, a tranquilizer, and protoveratrine, a heart relaxant, are all extracted from the roots of plants.
The most frequently collected items were: how much oil was spilled into the Caribbean Sea when the British Petroleum offshore oil rig exploded in 2010?
The largest accidental oil spill in the world began April 20, 2010 when the BP Deepwater Horizon rig exploded in the Gulf of Mexico. Initial estimates reported that only 1,000 barrels of oil per day were being released into the Gulf. These estimates quickly changed to 5,000 barrels per day and then 12,000 to 19,000 barrels per day by late May. As researchers continued to evaluate the situation, the estimate continued to rise until they determined that an average of 53,000 barrels of oil were released per day between April 20th and July 15th. 2010. The final estimate was 5 million barrels of oil flowed into the Gulf of Mexico, making it the largest oil spill ever.
How many muscles are in the human body?
There are about 650 muscles in the body, although some authorities believe there are as many as 850 muscles. No exact figure is available because experts disagree about which are separate muscles and which ones branch off larger ones. Also, there is some variability from one person to another, though the general musculature remains the same.
How long does female reproductive cycle last?
The reproductive cycle averages 28 days, but it may last from 24 to 35 days. A cycle of 20 to 45 days is still considered within the range of normalcy. The menstrual phase lasts 5 to 7 days. The preovulatory phase lasts 8 to 11 days, and the postovulatory phase lasts an average of 14 days.
How accurate is the Old Farmer's Almanac in predicting weather?
The Farmer's Almanac published in Lewiston, Maine, and the Old Farmer's Almanac published in Dublin, New Hampshire, both make predictions about the weather for the coming year when they are published. Each book claims to have secret formulas to predict the weather. The Old Farmer's Almanac claims it has an accuracy rate of 80%. Prior to modern forecasting techniques using radar, satellites, and computer simulation, many people relied on the almanacs for long-range weather forecasts. However, many of the predictions in the almanacs are very general in nature, such as a 5-day period in November may be predicted to be sunny/cool without a range of expected temperatures or whether it will be sunny each of the 5 days.
Which dogs are the easiest to train?
In a study of 56 popular dog breeds, the top breeds to train were Shetland sheepdogs, Shih Tzus, miniature toy and standard poodles, Bichons Frises, English Springer Spaniels, and Welsh Corgis.
Do seedless watermelons occur naturally?
Seedless watermelon was first introduced in 1988 after 50 years of research. A seedless watermelon plant requires pollen from a seeded watermelon plant. Farmers frequently plant seeded and seedless plants close together and depend on bees to pollinate the seedless plants. The white seeds, also known as pods, Found in seedless watermelons serve to hold a fertilized egg and embryo. Because a seedless melon is sterile and fertilization cannot take place. Pods do not harden and become a black seed, as occurs in seeded watermelons.
How is DNA organized in the nucleus?
Within the nucleus, DNA is organized with proteins called histons, into a fibrous material called chromatin. As a cell prepares to divide or reproduce, the thin chromatin fibers condense, becoming thick enough to be seen as separate structures, which are called chromosomes.
How serious is damage to the spleen?
Damage to the spleen, which is often the result of an injury caused by a blow to the left side of the abdomen, may be life-threatening. Since the spleen is a fragile organ, an injury can easily rupture it, resulting in serious internal bleeding, hemorrhaging, circulatory shock, and even death. Once the spleen ruptures, the only remedy is to surgically remove it in a procedure called a splenectomy.
What is the Rasmussen report?
Dr. Norman Rasmussen, 1927 to 2003, of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, conducted a study of nuclear reactor safety for the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission. The 1975 study cost $4 million and took 3 years to complete. It concluded that the odds against a worst-case accident occurring were astronomically large, 10 million to 1. The worst-case accident projected about 3,000 early deaths and $14 billion in property damage due to contamination. Cancers occurring later due to the event might number 1,500 per year. The study concluded that the safety features engineered into a plant are very likely to prevent serious consequences from a meltdown. Other groups criticized the Rasmussen report and declared that the estimates of risk were too low. After the Chernobyl disaster in 1986, some scientists estimated that a major nuclear accident might in fact happen every decade.
Why was Niagara Falls shut down for 30 hours in 1848?
The volume of Niagara waters depends on the height of Lake Erie at Buffalo, New York, a factor that varies with the direction and intensity of the wind. Changes of as much as 8 feet, 2.5 meters, in the level of Lake Erie at the Niagara River source have been recorded. On March 29, 1848, a gale drove the floating ice in Lake Erie to the lake outlet. quickly blocking that narrow channel and shutting off a large proportion of the river's flow. Eyewitness accounts stated that the American Falls were passable on foot, but for that day only.
How did the dodo become extinct?
The dodo became extinct around 1800. Thousands were slaughtered for meat, but pigs and monkeys, which destroyed dodo eggs, were probably most responsible for the dodo's extinction. Dodos were native to the Mascarene Islands in the central Indian Ocean. They became extinct on Mauritius soon after 1680 and on Réunion about 1750. They remained on Rodriguez until 1800.
What is the most popular state insect?
The honeybee is by far the most popular state insect, having been selected by 17 states: Arkansas, Georgia, Kansas, Louisiana, Maine, Mississippi, Missouri, Nebraska, New Jersey, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Utah, nicknamed the Beehive State, Tennessee, Vermont, West Virginia, and Wisconsin.
When was the Outer Space Treaty signed?
The United Nations Outer Space Treaty was signed on January 23, 1967. The treaty provides a framework for the exploration and sharing of outer space. It governs the outer space activities of nations that wish to exploit and make use of space, the Moon, and other celestial bodies. It is based on a humanist and pacifist philosophy and on the principle of the non-appropriation of space and the freedom that all nations have to explore and use space. A very large number of countries have signed this agreement, including those from the Western Alliance, the former Eastern Bloc, and non-aligned countries. Space law, or those rules governing the space activities of various countries, international organizations, and private industries, has been evolving since 1957, when the General Assembly of the United Nations created the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, COPUOS. One of its subcommittees was instrumental in drawing up the 1967 Outer Space Treaty.
Do butterflies see color?
Butterflies have highly developed sensory capabilities. They have the widest visual spectrum of any animal and are able to see from the red end of the spectrum all the way to near ultraviolet. They are therefore able to distinguish colors that humans are unable to see.
What is the difference between porpoises and dolphins?
Marine dolphins, family Delphinidae, and porpoises, family Phocinidae, together comprise about 40 species. The chief differences between dolphins and porpoises occur in the snout and teeth. True dolphins have a beak-like snout and cone-shaped teeth. True porpoises have a rounded snout and flat or spade-shaped teeth.
How does the immune system work?
The immune system has two main components, white blood cells and antibodies circulating in the blood. The antigen-antibody reaction forms the basis for this immunity. When an antigen, antibody generator, such as a harmful bacterium, virus, fungus, parasite, or other foreign substance invades the body, a specific antibody is generated to attack the antigen. The antibody is produced by B lymphocytes, B cells, in the spleen or lymph nodes. An antibody may either destroy the antigen directly or it may label it so that a white blood cell, called a macrophage, or scavenger cell, can engulf the foreign intruder. After a human has been exposed to an antigen, a later exposure to the same antigen will produce a faster immune system reaction. The necessary antibodies will be produced more rapidly and in larger amounts. Artificial immunization uses this antigen-antibody reaction to protect the human body from certain diseases by exposing the body to a safe dose of antigen to produce effective antibodies as well as a readiness for any future attacks of the harmful antigen.
What is urea and where is it produced?
During the process of metabolizing proteins, the body produces ammonia. Ammonia combines with carbon dioxide to form urea. The human body can tolerate 100,000 times more urea than ammonia. It is the most abundant organic waste produced in the body and it is eliminated by the kidneys. Humans generate about 0.75 ounces, 21 grams, of urea each day.
Why are some species more commonly used for genetic studies than others?
Species with a relatively small genome, with a short generation time from seed to seed, and that are adaptable to living in captivity are appealing as experimental organisms. Even though many of these species bear little physical resemblance to humans, they do share part of our genome and so can answer some of the questions we have about genetic inheritance and gene expression.
What term was originally used for DNA?
DNA was originally called nuclein because it was first isolated in 1869 from the nuclei of cells. In the 1860s, Johann Friedrich Miescher, 1844 to 1895, a Swiss biochemist working in Germany at the University of Tübingen lab of Felix Hoppe-Seyler, 1825–1895. Was given the task of researching the composition of white blood cells. He found a good source of white blood cells from the used bandages that he obtained at a nearby hospital. He washed off the pus and isolated a new molecule from the cell nucleus. White blood cells have very large nuclei. He called the substance nuclein.
How does a solar cell generate electricity?
A solar cell, also called a photovoltaic (PV) cell, consists of several layers of silicon-based material. When photons, particles of solar energy from sunlight, strike a photovoltaic cell, they are reflected, pass through, or are absorbed. Absorbed photons provide energy to generate electricity. The top P layer absorbs light energy. This energy frees electrons at the junction layer between the P layer and the N layer. The freed electrons collect at the bottom N layer. The loss of electrons from the top layer produces holes in the layer that are then filled by other electrons. When a connection, or circuit, is completed between the P layer and N layer, the flow of electrons creates an electric current. The photovoltaic effect, including the naming of the P layer and N layer, was discovered by Russell Ohl, 1898–1987, a researcher at Bell Labs, in 1940.
What products are made from recycled plastic?
A new clothing fiber called Fortril EcoSpun is made from recycled plastic soda bottles. The fiber is knit or woven into garments such as fleece for outerwear or long underwear. The processor estimates that every pound of Fortril EcoSpun fiber results in 10 plastic bottles being kept out of landfills.
Which blood type is the rarest?
The rarest blood type is Bombay blood, subtype HH, found only in a Czechoslovakian nurse in 1961 and in a brother and sister with the surname Jalbert living in Massachusetts in 1968.
What causes the sensation of pins and needles when your foot falls asleep?
Local pressure, such as crossing or sitting on your legs, may temporarily compress a nerve, removing sensory and motor function in your foot. When the local pressure is removed, the familiar feeling of pins and needles is felt as the nerve endings become reactivated.
What is the secret of bonsai? the Japanese art of growing dwarf trees.
These miniature trees with tiny leaves and twisted trunks can be centuries old. To inhibit growth of the plants, they have been carefully deprived of nutrients, pruned of their fastest growing shoots and buds, and kept in small pots to reduce the root systems. Selective pruning. Pinching out terminal buds, and wiring techniques are devices used to control the shape of the trees. Bonsai possibly started during the Zhou dynasty, 900 to 250 BCE, in China, when emperors made miniature gardens that were dwarf representations of the provincial lands that they ruled.
How much radiation does the average dental X-ray emit?
Dental examinations are estimated to contribute 0.15 mg per year to the average genetically significant dose. A small amount when compared to other medical X-rays. How does the U.S.
What were Aristotle's contributions to anatomy?
Aristotle, 384 to 322 b. CE, wrote several works laying the foundations for comparative anatomy, taxonomy, and embryology. He investigated carefully all kinds of animals, including humans. His works on life sciences, on sense and sensible objects, on memory and recollection, on sleep and waking, on dreams, on divination by dreams, on length and shortness of life, on youth and age, and on respiration, are collectively called parva naturalia.
When and where did the first blood bank open?
Several sites claim the distinction. Some sources list the first blood bank as opening in 1940 in New York City under the supervision of Dr. Richard C. Drew. 1904 to 1950, others list an earlier date of 1938 in Moscow at the Sklifosovsky Institute. Moscow's Central Emergency Service Hospital, founded by Professor Sergei Yudin. The term blood bank was coined by Bernard Fantis, 1874 to 1940, who set up a centralized storage depot for blood in 1937 at the Cook County Hospital in Chicago, Illinois.
Why is static electricity greater in winter than summer?
Static electricity results from an imbalance between negative and positive charges in an object. Most of the time the positive and negative charges in an object are balanced, meaning the object is neutral, it is neither positively nor negatively charged. When the charges build up on an object, they must find a way to be released or transferred to restore the balance between negative and positive charges. During the winter, the air has very little water vapor in it and is dry. In the summer, the air contains more water vapor, the humidity is greater. Water is an electrical conductor allowing electrons to move from one object to another more easily. The humidity in the summer air allows extra electrons on charged objects to leak off into the air and attach to objects that have too few electrons. The dry air in the winter makes it more difficult for the extra electrons to leak off an object, so static electricity, with its characteristic shock or spark, is more common.
Which is stronger, steel or the silk from a spider's web?
Spider silk is stronger. Well known for its strength and elasticity, the strongest spider silk has tensile strength, second only to fused quartz fibers and 5 times greater than that of steel of equivalent weight. Tensile strength is the longitudinal stress that a substance can bear without tearing apart.
What were the Beagle voyages?
The HMS Beagle was a naval survey ship that left England in December 1831 to chart the coastal waters of Patagonia, Peru, and Chile. On a voyage that would last 5 years, Darwin's job as unpaid companion to the captain on board the Beagle allowed him to satisfy his interests in natural history. On its way to Asia, the ship spent time in the Galapagos Islands off the coast of Ecuador. Darwin's observations there caused him to generate his theory of natural selection.
What is the difference between a plasmid and a prion?
A plasmid is a small, circular, self-replicating DNA molecule separate from the bacterial chromosome. Plasmids do not normally exist outside the cell and are generally beneficial to the bacterial cell. Plasmids are often used to pick up foreign DNA for use in genetic engineering. A prion is an infectious form of a protein or malformed protein that may increase in number by converting related proteins to more prions. Prions may cause a number of degenerative brain diseases such as mad cow disease or Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease in humans.
How large is the arthropod population?
Zoologists estimate that the arthropod population of the world, including crustaceans, spiders, and insects, numbers about 1,018,000 individuals. More than 1 million arthropod species have been described, with insects making up the vast majority of them. In fact, 2 out of every 3 organisms known on Earth are arthropods, and the phylum is represented in nearly all habitats of the biosphere. About 90% of all arthropods are insects, and about half of the named species of insects are beetles.
What is the most commonly broken bone?
The clavicle, collarbone, is probably one of the most frequently fractured bones in the body due to its vulnerable position and relative thinness. Fractured clavicles are caused by either a direct blow or a transmitted force resulting from a fall on the outstretched arm.
How big are capillaries?
The diameter of a capillary is about 0.0003 inches, 0.0076 millimeters, which is just about the same as a single red blood cell. A capillary is only about 0.04 inches, 1 millimeter, long. If all the capillaries in a human body were placed end to end, the collective length would be approximately 25,000 miles, 46,325 kilometers, which is slightly more than the circumference of the Earth at the equator, 24,900 miles, 46,139 kilometers.
When a person swallows solid or liquid food, what prevents it from going down the windpipe?
Once food is chewed, voluntary muscles move it to the throat. In the pharynx, throat, automatic, involuntary reflexes take over. The epiglottis closes over the larynx, voice box, which leads to the windpipe. A sphincter at the top of the esophagus relaxes, allowing the food to enter the digestive tract.
What are the major divisions of the brain?
The brain has four major divisions: 1. Brainstem, including the medulla oblongata, pons, and midbrain; 2. Cerebellum; 3. Cerebrum; and 4. Diencephalon. The diencephalon is further divided into the thalamus, hypothalamus, epithalamus, and ventral thalamus or subthalamus.
What are the oldest living cultured human cells?
The oldest, living, cultured human cells are the HeLa cell line. All HeLa cells are derived from Henrietta Lacks, 1920 to 1951, a 31-year-old woman from Baltimore, Maryland, who died of cervical cancer in 1951. Epithelial tissue obtained by biopsy became the first continuously cultured human malignant cells. From this culture, scientists were able to discover that 80 to 90% of cervical carcinomas contain human papillomavirus DNA. HeLa cells are used in many biomedical experiments.
Why does the moon always keep the same face toward Earth?
Only one side of the moon is seen because it always rotates in exactly the same length of time that it takes to revolve about Earth. This combination of motions, called captured rotation, means that it always keeps the same side toward Earth.
How is blood pressure measured?
A sphygmomanometer is the device used to measure blood pressure. It was invented in 1881 by an Austrian named von Basch. It consists of a cuff with an inflatable bladder that is wrapped around the upper arm, a rubber bulb to inflate the bladder, and a device that indicates the pressure of blood. Measuring arterial tension, blood pressure, of a person's circulation is achieved when the cuff is applied to the arm over the artery and pumped to a pressure that occludes or blocks it. This gives the systolic measure, or the maximum pressure of the blood, which occurs during contraction of the ventricles of the heart. Air is then released from the cuff until the blood is first heard passing through the opening artery, called Korokov sounds. This gives diastolic pressure, or the minimum value of blood pressure that occurs during the relaxation of the arterial filling phase of the heart muscle.
Does lightning ever strike twice in the same place?
Lightning can and often does strike twice in the same place. Since lightning bolts head for the highest and most conductive point, that point often receives multiple strikes of lightning in the course of a storm. In fact, tall buildings, such as the Empire State Building in New York, can be struck several times during the same storm. During one storm, lightning struck the Empire State Building 12 times. Designed as a lightning rod for the surrounding area, the Empire State Building is struck by lightning about 100 times per year during multiple storms.
What is a pulsar?
A pulsar is a rotating neutron star that gives off sharp regular pulses of radio waves at rates ranging from 0.001 to 4 seconds. Stars burn by fusing hydrogen into helium. When they use up their hydrogen, their interiors begin to contract. During this contraction, energy is released and the outer layers of the star are pushed out. These layers are large and cool. The star is now a red giant. A star with more than twice the mass of the Sun will continue to expand, becoming a supergiant. At that point, it may blow up in an explosion called a supernova. After a supernova, the remaining material of the star's core may be so compressed that the electrons and protons become neutrons. A star 1.4 to 4 times the mass of the Sun can be compressed into a neutron star only about 12 miles, 20 kilometers, across. Neutron stars rotate very fast. The neutron star at the center of the Crab Nebula spins 30 times per second. Some of these neutron stars emit radio signals from their magnetic poles in a direction that reaches Earth. These signals were first detected by Jocelyn Bell, 1943. Of Cambridge University in 1967. Because of their regularity, some people speculated that they were extraterrestrial beacons constructed by alien civilizations. This theory was eventually ruled out and the rotating neutron star came to be accepted as the explanation for these pulsating radio sources.
What is aromatherapy?
Holistic medicine looks at the health of the whole individual, and treatments emphasize the connection of mind, body, and spirit. Aromatherapy involves using particular scents derived from essential oils to influence emotions and to treat and cure minor ailments. It is based on the fact that the olfactory and emotional centers of the body are connected. By inhaling different aromas, emotional concerns as well as physical complaints are said to be eased. The term aromatherapy was first used by René Maurice Gattefossé, 1881 to 1950, a French perfume chemist. He discovered the healing powers of lavender oil following a laboratory accident during which he burned his hand. Gattefossé began to investigate the properties of lavender oil and other essential oils and published a book on plant extracts. During aromatherapy treatments, essential oils are absorbed through breath or the pores of the skin. This process triggers certain physiological responses.
Which woods are used for railroad ties?
Many species of wood are used for ties. The more common are oaks, gums, Douglas fir, mixed hardwoods, hemlock, southern pine, sycamore, and mixed softwoods.
What was the first computer game?
Despite the fact that computers were not invented for playing games, the idea that they could be used for games did not take long to emerge. Alan Turing proposed a famous game called Imitation Game in 1950. In 1952, Rand Air Defense Lab in Santa Monica created the first military simulation games. In 1953, Arthur Samuel, 1901 to 1990, created a checkers program on the new IBM 701. From these beginnings, computer games have today become a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Which foods contain trans fats?
Trans fatty acids, or trans fats, are made when manufacturers add hydrogen to liquid vegetable oil, a process called hydrogenation, creating solid fats like shortening and hard margarine. Hydrogenation increases the shelf life and flavor stability of foods containing these fats. Diets high in trans fat raise the LDL, low-density lipoprotein, or bad cholesterol, increasing the risk for coronary heart disease. Cakes, crackers, cookies, snack foods, and other foods made with or fried in partially hydrogenated oils are the largest source, 40%, of trans fats in the American diet. Animal products and margarine are also major sources of trans fats. Since January 2006, the U.S. government has directed that the amount of trans fat in a product must be included in the nutrition facts panel on food labels. In 2008, California became the first state to enact legislation to gradually phase trans fat out of foods served in food facilities and in baked goods. Similarly, New York City is phasing in a ban on trans fat in all city restaurants. Other states have proposed legislation to ban the use of trans fats in restaurants or schools or baked goods.